Most writers don't know how to read their own story, not because they're not capable, but because they're too close to it. Hello, fiction babes and storytellers. Welcome to Habits of a Writer, the podcast where we talk about the good habits that lead to a finished manuscript. I'm your host, Portia Lee Vett, novelist, indie author of two published novels, and currently waiting on my alpha reader's feedback on the next one. Last week, we talked about how your story isn't stuck. Your protagonist is stuck at a decision. But before we can fix that, we have to actually see it. And that's where most writers get stuck. I reread the first novel I published what felt like 100 times. And the problem was this: as the writer, I knew what I intended to say. So I read it that way. My brain was filling in the gaps automatically. So when you reread your manuscript, you're not actually reading what's on the page. You're reading what you meant to write. And that's the difference between writing and editing. The writer's mindset is creative, emotional, attached, protective. It's your creation. To you, it's perfect. And honestly, that's fine if you don't plan on sharing your work. But you're here because you do. And at some point, you have to shift from writer to editor. The editor's mindset is different. It's objective, curious, questioning, slightly detached. The writers create the story, the editors interrogate it. So now that we're stepping into that mindset, let's zoom out and look at your story differently. Instead of asking what happens next, start by asking, where does my story slow down? Are scenes dragging? Is nothing changing? Because when nothing is changing, it usually means a decision is missing. This actually takes me back to my creative writing class. Miss McGraw would hand my paperback covered in red ink. Did it sting? Yes. Did it help? Also, yes. And this is that moment. Looking at my own pre apocalyptic story, I know a war is coming. But 70 pages in, the war should have already started. Instead, I'm dragging out scenes, trying to explain too much backstory. There's no clear action. Nothing has changed. And once you see that, you can start asking better questions. Let's go a layer deeper. Ask yourself, are the motives clear? Could you explain why your character is doing this? Or are you assuming the reader understands? I mentioned last week that my main character is brave. But here's the real question: why? Why are kids patrolling portals instead of adults? If I'm asking that, my reader definitely will also. And from there, we go even deeper. Ask, are the stakes deep enough? Not just what happens, but what does it mean? My character losing his home isn't the real fear. It's what that loss represents, who he becomes without it. That's what the reader needs to feel. And finally, this is the big one. Is your protagonist choosing or reacting? Are they driving the story or are they just being carried through it? Because I can see places in my own story where I've let the plot run ahead and my character is just existing inside it. Now that you can see the problem, let's talk about what to actually do next. First, read straight through. No editing, no fixing. You're just observing, no judgment. Second, ask questions instead of rewriting. Why does this scene exist? What changes here? What decision is being made? Because it's not just about asking questions, it's about asking the right questions. Third, mark the problem areas: confusion, boredom, hesitation. This is your Miss McGraw red pen moment. If you feel it while reading, your reader will feel it too. And this is where I had to be honest with myself. I didn't abandon my story because it wasn't clear. I abandoned it because I wasn't reading it like an editor. I was reading it like someone who already knew the answers. And once you can see what's not working, then and only then you can start fixing it. And that's what we're getting into next week: how to find your direction again. But this week's habit: Read your story like an editor. Ask, where does the story slow down? What decision is missing? What am I assuming the reader understands? Because you can't fix what you can't see. So before you rewrite your story, learn to read it. Hey, if you're new here and looking for tips on writing, building sustainable writing habits, and encouragement to finish your manuscript, I'm so glad we found each other. I'll be here every Tuesday with a new episode. So make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss out. And if this How to Plot from the Middle series has encouraged you, share it with another writer friend who might need help. Until next time, happy writing, my friends. Again, my name is Portia Lee Vett, and this is Habits of a Writer.